Hello and welcome to Shine Self-Love Week. If you don't already know, this week is all about you and loving yourself and getting more from your life. So this week I'm doing a series of videos and culminating in me giving away a retreat place on Sunday night on my Instagram Live. And speaking of that retreat, I have tonight with me a wonderful special guest in the shape of the lovely Gemma Barry, who runs the Well Woman Project and will be on my retreat giving a masterclass and workshop in managing hormones. So welcome, Gem.
Hello, welcome. Thanks for having me.
So can you tell me a bit more about your business and what it is you do?
So I run the Well Woman Project. I'm also just recently author to a book called Periods Aren't Meant to Bloody Hurt.
Amazing. We'll chat about that a bit more as well.
But I started the Well Woman Project basically off the back of my own health. I had been suffering with outrageous periods and pain and just terrible fatigue and just feeling rubbish for many, many years. Was told everything was fine, everything was normal for many, many, many years. And then eventually found out that I had endometriosis, edenomyosis. I had a gigantic cyst hanging off my ovary.
Wow.
And yeah, felt like everything had gone to hell in a handcart. So I felt so appalled at the health and options offered that I thought, do you know what? I reckon I can give this a bash myself. I've got over 20 years.
Literally.
Yeah. Not literally, speaking. Over 20 years experience in like holistic healthcare, 15 in nursing. I smooshed the two together and here we are.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that in a nutshell is how the Well Woman Project was born.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what you do, I mean, I've worked with you, which is how we kind of came to meet. And it's been a total game changer for me and my health. And some of the kind of the plan that you've given me, when I follow it to the letter, it makes the biggest difference. And actually, there are lots of little things in there that if I do a lot of one thing, you know, that I just see the impact. So that's been amazing and a real game changer for me as I am perimenopausal and dealing with all of those things like the sweats and all of those horrible symptoms that women get at this time of life, although I know I'm very young to be going through that. So one of the things that you do is you work a lot with herbs. Can you tell me a bit more about that and how that all works?
Yes, so I am a herbologist or witch, whichever you like to call me.
Bit of both.
A bit of both. So yeah, working basically all medicine is has come from plants, and it's like the most honest medicine in a way, working with plants. There's lots of different ways in which plants work. Some have many actions that work on lots of different systems in the body. Some just work on one system, like Vitex, for example. A lot of people have heard of Vitex agnus castor, and that works literally on the menstrual hormones, and has no other action in the body. So that's why it's great for a whole host of different things. But when I work with my clients, we support the body with herbal products, but they can also work alongside allopathic medicine. So, you know, if people are on whatever they're on, it mean to say you can't take herbal medicine alongside that. You know, it really just helps support things. It helps, you know, I've worked with people who are wanting to come off of medicines, and then we can support the body through that with the herbal stuff as well. So it's just a really lovely way to support and nurture your body. And there's just so many different types of things. I mean, honestly, I do feel like Hubble and Bubble in my Zen day.
I imagine you're a bit cauldron. Making spells
and all sorts coming out the top and green bubbles. Like, that's what I really like envisage. But Yeah, it's not quite so amazing as that. But yeah, nonetheless, like I still get so much joy out of looking through my herbal books and like reading about the plants and how they can help, and following stuff in the springtime, like it's coming back around, things are coming out now, and it's like, yeah, get to see my friends again. Yeah, so it's really interesting. And then, again, seeing the benefits that has with people. And I think most people are massively skeptical about it, and that's absolutely fine. And then it just starts to work. And I hear this all the time of people like, I don't know what it is, but I'm starting to feel better. And I'm like, do you think it's the potions? Well, I don't know. It's like,
it's
well,
so
that's
funny, isn't it? That sort of skepticism, because so my own sort of journey, I mean, I started with the whole perimenopause thing with you, and then I started to get these like I think the thing that really kicked it off for me was I started to get these like migraines around ovulation, and I was like, hang on a minute, not only do I have to suffer once a month, I have to suffer twice a month. That is not right. And you designed me this amazing thing. And I remember, because at the same time I kind of went to the doctor, because I was like, I just want, because you'd said as well, like, let's rule out anything else just to be certain, which I think is always a good idea. But they sort of said, oh, you've got to be careful with this and careful with that. And then, so one person I spoke to said that, and then another person said, well, HRT comes from yams, doesn't it? So, or some forms, the non-synthetic does. So it's like, people are wondering why it works, but you wouldn't really wonder why HRT works, would you? You just accept that it works. And it's just this sort of like conditioning that we've been given. I mean, I'm sort of like very thankful, having worked with you and implemented all those steps, like my symptoms are massively diminished, to the point where I actually stopped taking my tinctures, and then guess what happened? It started to creep up again. So I'm on this, like, for the last probably about month, I think I've just been kind of hitting them hard again every morning, and it's kind of changed it again. So yeah, it really does work. And I think, like you say, people are so skeptical just because we've been conditioned that this is the way. A little Mandalorian vibe. But like you say, like, all medicines came from plants in the first place, right? So all it is just because it doesn't come in that little white box with a little signature from the pharmacist on it, doesn't mean it doesn't work.
No, absolutely. And like, really interestingly, aspirin, for example, comes from salicylic acid, which is found in a plant called meadowsweet and also white willow bark. But in terms of meadowsweet, grows abundantly around by me. And it was used for, aspirin like qualities, really good pain reliever, things like that. That's been like, the pharmaceutical company wanted to trademark it, and so you can't say, oh, it has like, it's like aspirin. You can't say that about meadowsweet, even though it has salicylic acid, which is aspirin, in it, because big pharma have that like hold on stuff. They make it very difficult, so now everything is synthetically made, and with that comes a lot of side effects. So a lot of plants will do, like stinging nettles, for example, if you touch them, they create like an urticarial rash. But they're also, if you take them internally, an antihistamine, which will help soothe that. So, they protect the body.
They work for themselves. Yes, they sting you and then they heal you from the sting.
Exactly.
So clever. But it's so interesting, isn't it? It's a bit of a like follow the money kind of a thing, isn't it? Because it's like, well, yeah, you can take this, but then you might get all of this. And that was actually what I was told about my migraines. I was told, well, you can take this, but what that's going to do is it's going to, like, it was something really scary, like it's going to slow down the blood flow to your heart, so you might get worse palpitations. I was like, well, palpitations is one of my issues that you're like really panicking about. The doctors have really panicked. I've been sent to A&E about palpitations, and then they've gone, no, you're absolutely fine, which is obviously the right thing to get checked out and everything like that when that kind of thing happens. But for them to then prescribe me something that's going to it just doesn't add up. And I think what I loved about working with you, and have loved about working with you, is that holistic approach. So it's not just like, take these, it's, you can change this, what about this, have you looked at this, and there's this whole kind of prescriptive plan, rather than like take this packet of pills and that will sort you out, because
Yeah.
it's that sort of like treating the cause and not the symptom, right?
Absolutely. Like, oh, but we're just a one massive chemistry set at the end of the day. And so everything that you put in will have a reaction on some level. And all symptoms that we have in our body are a communication point. It's a way of our body to go, hello, I'm not feeling so hot today. You know, and that, if we start reading that, we get like body literacy, which is what I'm like massively passionate about. You know, the reason I wrote my book was because literally every conversation I have with my clients, it starts with, why don't I know this stuff? You know, we this huge gap in our education
Yeah.
about our own bodies. Like, you know, medicine has never used women's bodies to take into account the differences in our bodies with different drugs.
Yeah.
You know, what happens with our menstrual cycles. You know, none of that has ever been looked at because we've been considered too difficult and complex because of our hormonal cycles and all the rest of it. So everything that we're using, you know, allopathically and otherwise, has all been tested on men and not women. So therefore, we just don't really know how anything is going to work or best course of action. And if we start listening to our bodies and understanding, you know, the nuances, there's so much information in your cycle, like not just the period part, the whole thing. And, you know, like you noticed migraines, like sweats or brain fog, or, you know, whatever it may be, you start to like walk towards those things and answer your body's questions of why is this happening, and then looking at that in a whole. It could be, you know, diet or exercise or stress or, you know, whatever.
The
Bring
above.
into the fold, exactly. Start like going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and your body will lead you to the answers. It's just that we're all a little bit in the dark, like mushrooms, about that, to be honest, because
Yeah.
you know, our menstrual cycle has just been taught around reproduction, and that is it. You know, there's no mention of it being good for our brains, our bones, our heart, you know, our energy levels. Like when you look at hormonal health, we're a bag of hormones, our whole endocrine system, our insulin, our thyroxine, our adrenaline, cortisol, you know, all of that stuff is hormones, but we only ever think of it as in terms of estrogen and progesterone. And you're like,
yes,
but that speaks to everything.
everything else. Yeah, it's never holistic, is it? And actually, as you were talking then about sort of how we're educated on it and what we're taught about it, when I was at school, we weren't even taught about, I didn't even know that perimenopause was a thing until I started experiencing it. Like, how frightening is that I'm not even educated on what's going to happen to my body in this whole, like, you know, sex education. That's not sex education, is it? If you're not telling me something, you're leaving out a huge part. And I mean, I know that that's better now, and I think you said to me when we first started working together, I think people 30 and under have been getting that education, but again, it's probably all very geared towards you can take this pill and that will fix it and all that kind of thing. So I think that really interests me. Well, it all really interests me, but something you said then as well about your body sending you messages. So periods aren't meant to bloody hurt, which is your book. Like, well, I mean, the title itself, periods aren't meant to hurt. Newsflash, everybody. Periods are not meant to hurt. And don't we just accept that they do? Can you talk more about that and sort of what led you to title it that and what it's all about?
Yes, this is one of my favorite subjects because periods have been normalized for millennia to be a problem. You know, like well-meaning friends, family, medicine. You know, you turn up to your healthcare provider and say, I have painful periods. And they're like, take paracetamol. You know, it is okay for them to hurt. It isn't. Like, of course, we are going to feel something is different when we're having a period. Like, I'm bleeding now and I do not want to do cartwheels or go, you know, anywhere near any kind of sport or anything else. I just want to park my ass on the sofa and bleed for a couple of days, you know. And we're just so conditioned for it to be painful. We're so accepting of that. You know, we have special, you can go into Boots and find Panadol for periods, you know, in a pink packet. We've capitalized on this narrative. So normalized is it in our society that we don't see it as a problem, and therefore we are allowing women and those with uteruses to put up with very painful and uncomfortable periods for way longer than they actually need to, because effectively we're being gaslit by our medical system, because we're going with a problem and they're saying, no, everything is fine. I have personal experience of this, of, you know, my diagnosis taking 10 years at the very least. I mean, it was longer than that. I've presented in A&E several times, and every single time I have arrived in A&E, I have said, I am having very severe pain, you know, in my uterus, it's period related, blah, 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 blah. And I am told, no, we'll check your appendix. Wrong fucking side. You know, it's irritable bowel, it's kidney stones. I've had every other diagnosis under the sun other than the one in which it actually has been. And because, you know, it's just discredited. Well, it can't be that, because that's what periods are like. And you're like, no, this isn't how periods should be. Yes, we'll feel different. We might feel a heaviness, we might have some cramps for sure, but it shouldn't be us needing to take over-the-counter medicine. In fact, you know, we shouldn't need to be medicating our periods, because they shouldn't be causing us that much pain and discomfort. They shouldn't be massively heavy. I have a whole like red flag list in my book of the do's and don'ts, really, because it's really important that, you know, you are aware of your boundaries within health and your body literacy. So, you know, if you've always been told that, yeah, your periods are like meant to be like this,
go on the pill. That's
yeah,
the you'll be told, go on the pill.
You know, it'll be fine, which all just mask the problem anyway, and never actually cures anything. And I mean, I would say 100% of my clients, when we first initially speak, burst into tears with me and say, thank you for hearing me, because you're taking me seriously, you're allowing me to speak my truth, you're allowing me to share this thing, and I will go, yeah,
and you believe me.
I believe you. Yeah,
because this is another thing, you know, I've been gaslit many times as well. I'm sure, like, I think every woman I know has got a story of, we go to the doctors, this happens, and they say, you know, I've had recently people saying things like, female doctor told me I'm too young at 47 to have to be going through perimenopause, because they don't actually understand what perimenopause. For myself personally, they said, we'll check your hormone levels. Well, the hormone levels are fine, so you can't be going through the perimenopause. That's just total bollocks, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, I mean, newsflash,
gaslighting, especially so often from other women. That's the thing that I find so
well, you see,
betrayed.
Misogyny runs very deeply in the health service, so that is enabled by women as well as men. And yeah, misogyny and the patriarchy are ingrained very deeply in our health service, sadly. Again, because when you go back historically, it was only men that were allowed to train to be doctors. You know, women were test subjects for some really barbaric things, but they weren't allowed in that space to share and speak about our you know, issues. And so, you know, hysteria
you have to whisper it, issues.
issues. Yeah, you know, you were just labeled as
women's troubles. What is it? Women's troubles, would we call it?
Yes, I've got women troubles.
That's not my only trouble, mate, honestly.
You've got 99 problems, and the patriarchy is all of them. Yeah, exactly that. You know, hysteria was only taken out of the American Journal of like psychiatric ailments in 1980. So we've a long way to come. and go, really, for that stereotype to stop being a thing. And it's still very much it's probably all in your head. That still gets, just go and get pregnant. You know, all of this awful advice that
Oh
still
yeah, that's
in
another one.
2024.
I got told that my adult acne would clear up if I had a second baby.
Yes.
And I was
Me.
like, right, never had, spoiler alert, never had a second baby, managed to treat it. How did I treat it? With herbs.
Yeah.
And I continue to take these things, which are, you know, it's looking pretty good now. But had I just gone with that, you know, I would have been a single mum to two children. Shit. Okay, I'm glad I didn't take that advice.
I mean, it's quite the prescription, isn't it? I don't know your social circumstances at all, but I suggest you go out and have a baby. I mean, it's wild, wild.
Completely wild. Like, it's
Like,
just,
why was I
how is
born
it
now?
allowed to happen? Like, if that happened in a workplace, right, people would be in tribunal. So how are our doctors allowed to say shit like that?
Can you imagine? Why did you have me to clear up my acne? I mean, it's just, it's
Okay,
wild.
I actually
It's
want a
wild.
second child. You
Yeah.
just came along to stop my chin from erupting every month.
And then conversely, like I don't have children through choice, and I have been just, you know, they're like, well, you don't need your ovaries, we'll just take them away because you're not having children. You don't need your uterus, we'll just take it away because you're not having children. And you're like, no, no,
Oh
that's
my
not its
God.
only function. So you are like, it's just insane.
It's quite infuriating. I am actually, my blood is boiling a bit talking
No.
about it.
And that's the, like, listen, I think having babies is amazing. It's an incredible thing that our bodies can do if you so wish, and, you know, go down that road. Brilliant. There is no shade about it at all. But that being the leading focus of what our uterus and ovaries are for is so
It's really
reductionist
wrong.
to our body and our system as a whole, because, you know, our ovaries and our uteruses are for so much more than that.
Mm,
You know,
mm,
they are producing hormones that are so much more than just for having kids.
mm.
We're one of, I think, 4 or 5 mammals that have a monthly period. You know, we're quite unique as a species to do that, and you know, which kind of suggests that it isn't just all about procreation, because there's
Mm.
no way you could have that many babies all the time, you
Oh
know.
God, but it'd clear up your acne though, wouldn't it? You
We'd
wouldn't
have
have any
no
problems.
acne and we'd have no issues because you'd just be with child all the time. Um, you know,
Oh,
that whole,
it doesn't really
yeah.
bear thinking about, I don't think.
No, but so we're this narrative is very very archaic. It's very, you know, capitalist, it's quite patriarchal, it's very
Mm,
racist, it's white supremacist,
mm,
all of those things
mm,
uh, of keeping you oppressed in what we think we should be doing with your uterus. I mean, we're seeing it play out in the States and stuff. It all gets very political and icky
mm.
and nasty and all the rest of it. But it is as a way of controlling, and is really only a stone's throw away from the whole TV show. Um,
Yeah, yeah, totally. Oh my God, that TV show is coming to life, isn't it?
yeah,
Pretty much.
yeah.
Let's hope it's actually not. Okay, let's move on to a cheerier subject. Pause.
Yeah.
So, personally, I started perimenopause at 41 and was told I was much too young for that. Obviously, not by yourself. But obviously, that can happen to people at any age, and actually, it does tend to run in families, right? Is that about correct?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely has a genetic factor.
Mm,
And listen, your body starts the process of perimenopause in your late 30s.
mhm.
So I mean,
That's if you're on track as the norm, not like early or late, right?
yes, it's not saying that you're you know, you're in the perimenopause at that point, but your body is starting the process. So perimenopause is like um period brain at its absolute best. And it, it is like starting your periods, your puberty in reverse is basically what I'm trying to say. So if you were to look at a sort of timeline of your period career, when you started, it would be like a big swirly mess, because that's all the hormones coming in and trying to find a rhythm. And then we have a bit of a rhythm, hopefully, throughout your major part of your career. And then at the end, it goes a big swirly mess again, as your periods are, your hormones are thinking about retirement and going off to Bermuda. So, you know, it's a time where it's a natural process of a woman's body and life and stuff like that. And I think there needs to be like way more conversations about this not being like the end and we're just about to die and shrivel.
it does come to shriveling the way we've been taught to think about it, right?
Major perks of not having periods. I mean, wearing white underwear whenever you like.
Oh my God.
Free, you know, I mean, amazing. But you know, we start that process like when you're in puberty, you're starting the process of puberty way before you start having your periods. Same for when you're going through it in the other way. You know, the process of perimenopause is starting before you're seeing visual evidence of it, if you like. And you know, usually within our 40s is when we start to see symptoms occurring, and your symptoms can happen and your periods can still be perioding, you know.
Oh yeah, mine is like regular. In fact, they just started getting closer together, which is a bit of a bugger, to be honest. I was hoping it would get further apart gradually, and then I just sort of drift into my prune state, whatever.
Become crone. I mean, they will. That's exactly what will happen. They might get close together, spread out, close together, spread out, and it's all to do with, you know, each month your ovaries are you know, reducing in the hormones and stuff that's going on, and so you get these different fluctuations between your progesterone and estrogen, and that's why we start to see these symptoms that, you know, there are a myriad of symptoms, but the most common ones are things like brain fog, like sweats, hot flushes, achy joints, you know, things, forgetting your words sometimes, like verbs escaping.
I was just going to say brain fog, but I remembered you've already said that one.
I know. And then I actually
about
did it.
Brain fog. I've got it clearly.
Yeah. So, and I think it can be quite scary. Like these things,
I was
you know,
petrified. I was like, because I didn't know what the hell it was.
Yeah, it can feel like you're going a little bit bonkers, and definitely the narrative is just quickly take HRT, and if you don't, it's going to go terrible for you, and you're leaving yourself open to risk. Now, I'm someone who can't take HRT because of my conditions. Like, it's difficult for me to navigate that in essence in a standard hormonal way, if you like. So. And it's not just me, you know, there's plenty of people out there who don't want to take it by choice or can't take it, you know, tried it and they don't get on with it. So there isn't only ever one way to do anything, you know, and it's not either all of that or all of this. You can blend things, and, you know, whichever way works for you is good for you. But it's really important to know that the perimenopause, you get it in a state of your time of your life where you're having to actually address quite a lot of things. You know, there could be some significant life events that are going on at that time. You know, could be parents becoming ill, or, you know, leaping off the mortal coil, or children leaving home, or, you know, relationships going south. A lot of these things can happen, and in amongst all of that, it can be really challenging. And I think it's really important to say that trauma-informed care is really important over every facet. And you know, I'm a big fan of like the holistic psychologist and the stuff that she teaches.
Love her.
All of that thing. And there's something that happens in our 40s, which is like a midlife awakening of like, I ain't gonna put up with this shit no more. I is done. Like,
That is so true. I'm putting up with, yeah, my fucks are all gone. I'm just like, I'm not dealing with it anymore. If I don't have to, I'm not doing it.
absolutely, it's like a halfway point. It's a good place to check in with yourself. And like, I think there are, I've been really reflecting on this, and our hormones get blamed for so much stuff. It's like, oh, I'm just, my period's due, so like, all cognitive functions gone out the window. But I think that's it's an unfair representative sometimes of, actually, there's other stuff going on,
Mm,
masked by or heightened by our
mm,
fluctuations perhaps in hormones.
definitely.
And it's a time of really getting involved in the stuff you've probably popped in a box and said,
Mm.
just ignore that over there. um and sometimes people keep it in the box, and that's fine, and other times the box just explodes all over the place. You're like, okay, now I actually have to
That's me. My
I
box
have to
just
look at
exploded, Gem.
this.
Yeah, it's one of those where
Yeah.
it's sort of like you say, you sort of do just start to go, hang on a minute, is that what I want for my career? Is that what I want for my relationship? Is that what I want for, it's a kind of like a real kind of like time of reflection, and a real time of like, hang on a minute. Like I think there is that. It's almost a bit of a chicken and egg for me, I think, because it's sort of like, hang on a minute, am I going to spend like the rest of my life, however many years that may be, and hopefully it's a long time, but I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing something anything that makes me unhappy, basically. And so, like you say, that coupled along with some at times what had been horrendous perimenopause symptoms,
Yeah.
it's a real like recipe for disaster. I'm like a big fan now of making sure I'm not doing anything at certain times of the month. Like, I don't have big conversations at a certain time of the month. I don't. Yeah, I there was a time period where I was kind of arguing with my ex-husband quite a lot, and I was like, oh, hang on, I argued with him that week, and I argued with him that week, and then the rest of the time I thought he was totally fine and he didn't piss me off at all. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, so it's a bit of a funny one, actually.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the amount of
That-
those.
the richness of understanding your cycle. Like, you can start plotting things. No, not that kind of thing, but like, I mean, honestly, the amount of blood that we have all collectively had to get out of clothes would make excellent serial killers. But when you start plotting your chart and you see your peaks and troughs of energy levels, and the nuance that you have in your cycle. We can read a textbook and it says, on average, a cycle is 28 days. On average, this happens. Just before your period, your mood drops or
It
whatever
will
else.
happen.
Yeah, but for some people, the mood drop happens whilst they're having their period, and
Yeah.
the time before it is they're absolutely fine. So it's finding that nuance and stuff that really, really works for you. But a big interest of mine is stress on the body as a whole, but certainly within the menstrual cycle. And I'm certainly seeing this more and more, as I'm in my 40s now, and I'm working with women within that age bracket as well, that there's patterns of ways of being that just, they cannot keep that pattern going anymore, and that rub is causing perhaps a lot of stress, or the pattern itself is causing a lot of stress. And the stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol create a huge amount of inflammation, and inflammation is the key marker for all dis-ease in the body. Like, it will create an absolute shitstorm for everything. So if you want to have worst periods and loads more headaches, and really exacerbate your problems, you run your life on stress, you will get there fairly quickly. And stress can hide in places like how you eat, can cause stress in your body. It's not just the physical stress of being stressed at work, or
So it's not just the obvious things.
Not just the obvious things. It's like the hidden stresses that we aren't always conscious of, that are creating a lot of problems in our body. I'm an ex-hangry. I can tell a hangry from 50 paces when I'm like, yeah, all my
You
clients.
know.
Brings all of them. And I'm like, so does this happen? Like, yes. We start tweaking stuff. This makes massive like
Oh,
stride in helping sleep become better, energy levels to become better, mood to become better. Like it is a game changer because you are not, you know, swirling your insulin levels and your stress levels on this big massive roller coaster, and things just start to like equal out in your body and the noise reduces, and then you're better facilitated to then get a handle on other stuff
yeah.
that, you know, you haven't been able to maybe put the energy around because, you know, your body's crashing around all over the place. So
Mm.
simply hacking your, you know, not hacking, but even working with your biology and
Yeah.
working with the symptoms of like hungry isn't normal. Okay, we see it on a meme, you know, I'm sorry what I did when I was hungry. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
actually, that is very stressful and energy consuming for your body to be in that
That's
state.
what I'm concerned as well. Just ask my
Yeah,
boyfriend.
yeah.
But so well, as you were talking then, I was actually thinking about some of those absolute game changers that you've kind of taught me through working together that have really changed that for me. So change some of those symptoms, change that sort of hunger. And I know that everybody's different, but to kind of like round off tonight, what have you got any kind of like general tips or like top things that people should be looking at that are going to help them to really balance their hormones and get a handle on it? Obviously, following you and listening to your tips would be step one.
Buy the book.
Buy the
Tip
book.
number one,
I'll
go to
link, I'll
Amazon
link it. I'll link it in the notes to make sure.
and go and get Periods Are Meant to Bloody Hurt,
Yes.
because that's the stuff. But yeah, my kind of top three would be definitely charting. Like, and when I mean charting, I don't mean just when you start and stop your period, but start charting and noting all the nuances in between, like your whole, whatever, how many days your cycle is, chart all of it, because there'll be things in there that you won't have put two and two together. Like it's really illuminating. And I love it when, you know, clients who come work with me have charted for a long time, because we get a lot more meat on the bones of what's going on for people. Really, like, really tap into your, what that charting does, really tap into your top three things that come out of that. So for some people, it's like, okay, the top three things that are coming out of that are pain, perhaps. I get a huge drop in energy and I get headaches, for example. Start looking at what those, how those things are showing up for you, and start seeing if there's patterns within that. You know, when do the headaches start? When do they finish? Like, where are they occurring? Is it a couple of times? Is it just for a day? Is it a migraine, or, you know, whatever else? Really start to laser focus on that. And again, you're basically collecting data on yourself, which, you know, this then allows you to talk to your healthcare providers in a much more articulate way. And that allows you to not just turn up to your GP and say something along the lines of, oh, I've just got really bad, painful periods. But if you can turn up to them and go, right, so I have noticed in the last 6 months that I have pain here, like at the start of my period, I get it again mid-cycle, I get it randomly here, there, and everywhere. Like, this is not normal. This is going to be taken much more seriously than just chatting and going, well, it's just a shit show, and I don't really know, I've just got painful periods. Like, it in itself should be taken seriously, but it isn't. So we need to be our own advocates. And I'm, you know, I've advocated for people for many years, and I'm a big advocate for advocating, because you don't do it, no one else will. And yeah, so those are sort of the things I would say, is like, chart, then notice the, you know, the top three things that are coming, excuse me, out of that irregular cycle. That could be something else. A lot of people don't know that they have an irregular cycle. And then you know, really harvest that data so that you can speak, you know, in a very direct and forthright way, which is your absolute like right. And if you feel that you don't get the answers that you want from the person sitting opposite you, you go somewhere else who will give you the answers that you want. And you know, you should be listened to, should be heard. There shouldn't be any like, well, I don't think that's the case, or no, I'm not going to give you that blood test, or blah 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 blah. You're not in the right arena, or don't tick the right boxes for this. Like, there isn't anything I haven't heard about what terrible things get said to people. And you know, if you then become at the end of your rope, you come find somebody like me.
There is nobody like you, there's only you.
Yeah, there is only me that does things that I do. But yeah, it's interesting. I think in terms of alternative practices, I suppose I would say 9 times out of 10 people do turn up to my door when they are at the end of their rope and they feel they've exhausted everything else. Because I just think we're so conditioned to think the only way I can do things is by going through, you know, the usual route. But like you said, it's really important to get things checked out, that it's not, you know, anything else. And that's why it's good to sort of team up with a good health service and, you know, get those things checked out. But 9 times out of 10, once you start answering your body's calls, you don't need that stuff, because you're starting to allow your body to heal and you know, reverse the symptoms and get back into a place of balance, which is what it's always trying to do anyway.
Definitely. And I think, yeah, I would totally agree. I think a big game changer for me has been just really listening to myself. And I would say that about my body and my mind and everything, you know, just right. What are those little, I heard somebody describe it recently as a little cuckoo. So it's that cuckoo down the mind that stops singing. So what's the thing that happens in your body? What isn't singing? And if you really listen, then you do know.
Yeah, absolutely. And rest, like rest and rest some more. Please, for the love of God, stop pushing yourself. You know, it's not worth it at the end of the day. Like,
no, absolutely. And that is exactly what this whole week is all about. You know, I think I started the week off by saying, you know, when we all started working 40-hour weeks, there was a whole other person at home taking care of the house and taking care of your ironing and your washing and your food and your and the house. And now we're trying to do that, and we're trying to do all these other things that didn't even exist then. And then we're wondering why we are exhausted and unhappy and stressed and at the end of our tethers and not living as long and getting all of these health issues. So
and feeling guilty for sitting down and having a rest. Like, I mean, you know, this sort of toxic productivity situation we now find ourselves in, of always having to be on the go and instantly doing things and stuff all the time. It's just like, no, we're allowed to stop and be a little bored. We're allowed that. Being a bit bored and just taking some time out and outside is really important.
Yeah, it is basic things, and it's things we all know, but then it's like, and people kind of get a bit like, oh, well, I know that, but it's like, well, are you doing it? Probably not. So that's why people keep talking about it, and that's why you're not feeling great.
And it also, like, we want the silver bullet, which you just can't do it. You know, you can't just silver bullet your way through stuff. And
sadly not.
We also want to overcomplicate things. We're just, you know, if I was to say my top 3 things was sleep more, drink more water, stop staring at your phone so much, people are like, oh, so crap. Like that, what, that's going to do anything. You're like,
try it and see.
It really will. But it's like, well, that's too easy. So we don't do it, because you're just like, well, drinking more water isn't going to help, and going to bed early and getting 8 hours isn't going to help. And you're like, just try it. Like,
please. Try it, so please. If there's any message we could leave you with this evening, it is please.
Sit down and rest.
I do keep saying I'm prescribing it. Please rest, and don't feel guilty.
Yeah, factor in, put it in your diary. Like, have
that's
rest.
what I have to do.
like plan it, put it in there, so you know you allow for it, because your body will be so much happier.
Definitely.
So
So
much happier.
thank you so much for this entire talk. It's been fascinating, and I can't wait to welcome you to my retreat for the proper workshop. Yay! So if people want to find you and find out more about you, I will put links in the notes, but where's the best places to get in touch with you?
So my website is thewellwomanproject.com. I'm on the gram as Well Woman Project, and I'm on Facebook as Well Woman Project. Like, just Well Woman Project me.
Just Well Woman Project it up.
Me, the
Amazing.
one with greeny hair.
And
Yeah.
I shall link the book as well, because it is a really amazing book. I have started it. I have not finished it, but it is on my nightstand, being started and finished soon.
Right,
And
it's
you
a good
can sign it for me
round.
next time I see you, which makes me really excited as well.
Can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. But thanks so much for having
Amazing.
me. This has been fab.
It has, and I think this will help loads of people. So thank you so much.
Very welcome.
Thank
See you
you.
later. Bye.